Hello, welcome back to all of you. Today we will be looking at the subject that's close to all of our hearts. What is happiness? This is one of many talks in the series entitled The Law of Karma, Destiny and Choice. Sister Denise, hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you.
So what is happiness? This question has plagued mankind for centuries. And unfortunately, we live in a world where we see so little of it. So what is happiness?
I think it can be interpreted on a number of levels, so that for some people happiness is something, for others it's something else. But there are some general principles. For me, the greatest happiness occurs when you understand something you didn't understand before. I think in the process of trying to understand things, you experience frustration, irritation, sometimes failure. It takes you really away from comfort. And it can even take the form of philosophical pain when you just don't understand what's going on. And this is why I'm very interested in this series, because it gives you such a deep understanding that you can actually make sense of everything, and then you can let go of so much heaviness, so much stress, so much actual sorrow about the way the world is. So that's one level. Otherwise, it is said that happiness has three components. One is you need money, you need good health, and you need good relationships. And if you have all those three, you're happy. So a lot of people will go for that. But many people, well, they interpret happiness as when they receive gratification of their desires. And this in spiritual description is called temporary happiness.
What does that mean?
Temporary means that you can enjoy it for a while, and then after a while it's no longer enjoyable. In a way, it's like the incense stick. You light an incense stick and you experience the fragrance for a little while. And the incense stick continues to burn. You don't experience the fragrance anymore. Someone walking into the room will experience it. And then after a while, they won't experience it anymore, because fragrance has this attribute that you catch it initially and then it fades. Even though the source of the fragrance is still there, your experience of it is not. And this happens very much in relationships. You meet somebody who you think is wonderful, you fall in love with them, you look at them through rose-colored spectacles, everything is beautiful, everything they say is amazing. But then after some time, if you don't cultivate the relationship and shift it to deeper levels, everything fizzles out. The person is the same, the situation is the same, but you kind of got used to it and there's nothing there for you.
In terms of the law of karma, how does one continue to bring happiness to oneself? And I'm asking this question in the backdrop of the world that is experiencing the opposite of happiness.
One part of happiness is order, stability, and harmony. If your relationships are good, they will persist, they will grow, they will deepen. And that is predicated on the assumption that you know how to cultivate the relationship, how to have an exchange, the karmic give and take with people that keeps on sustaining that relationship. And if you don't sustain the relationship, and if you do things that are destructive to the relationship, then your happiness is going to go away with that, because your happiness comes from that. If you are a person who needs stability, and if you don't cultivate all the things that are to do with stability, that will also go. So this aspect of cultivation is a very important attribute of happiness. If you don't look after your body, it'll soon start giving you sorrow, pain, trouble, and the doctor will tell you, well, you're not paying attention to your health, and this is why you're paying the price. The onus is on us to keep it going.
When you speak of body consciousness, you spoke of the 5 vices and others. Now, to a certain extent, those vices bring us a certain sense of what we believe to be happiness. So, what is wrong about that?
I think it's really our use of terminology. When we are operating on the basis of greed, attachment, lust, anger, ego, we're getting sense gratification. An egotistical person wants to be appreciated, regard, honor, this and that. So if you get it, you feel good. If you don't get it, you get angry. Anger, you often have mentioned as secondary emotion, is what happens when you don't get what you want. People use the word happiness to mean sense gratification. But if you would use the word sense gratification to mean sense gratification, then you wouldn't get deluded.
Okay.
So it's very good to use the word that means what's going on.
It is the reality that we live in a world where people take delight or joy in harming others. And they do it, and that brings them a sense of something. What would one call that experience?
Well, this is where a person has been corrupted. You will enjoy harming creatures or other people as a reaction to some sort of trauma, which may have happened in this life, in your childhood, or may even have happened in a previous life, and you get born, you come in with all of that. But ultimately, it doesn't correspond to the essential nature of a soul. So it's definitely to do with having been corrupted, and when a person is corrupted, whatever is their natural, essential characteristic turns into the opposite, is corruption.
How does one know, Sister Denise, from a spiritual perspective, what happiness is real and what's not? We live in a world that has become so illusory. So it's an awful feeling when you think, I found happiness, I found joy, only to realize that it's a mirage.
Well, I think in spiritual practice, one of the greatest benefits is disillusionment. It's a very unpleasant feeling, but ask yourself the question, do you wish to live under an illusion or not? If you don't want to live under any illusions, then you want the reality.
Give us some examples of what you mean. Illusions.
It's exactly what you just gave. You think you found happiness only to find it's an illusion. That's a perfect example. The illusion. Our culture is filled with fairy tales that are illusions. You know, what is this? Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, all of these stories are all about you fall in love, you meet the perfect prince, you live happily ever after. It's so rare that that happens. Any long-term, deep and powerful relationship, you have to go through many big difficulties. You have to cultivate it, you have to get across so many problems And then you arrive ultimately after many years at a solid, stable relationship, and that is success. You know, most people's relationship fizzles out at the first obstacle, and then that's that. The people remain lacking in competence of creating sustainable, lasting relationships. They don't understand what they're required to do to cultivate the relationship, because they're operating as takers, and they just want to take.
And what is the karma of being a taker?
Well, the karma of being a taker is you don't create any credit, so you use up your credit very quickly, and then there's nothing. But law of karma says it has to be give and take, that has to be equal and mutually beneficial, otherwise it will not last. Simple as that.
You speak extensively about a term that's new to most of our listeners called body consciousness. When an individual stands in front of the mirror and looks at his reflection or her reflection, this person sees the reflection in the mirror. The person believes to their core, this is who I am. And you are saying what about that?
What I'm saying is, when you look at your reflection in the mirror, the glass mirror, you'll see something very different than what you look at if you look in the mirror of your heart.
That is true, yeah.
In the mirror of your heart, you'll see the quality of your being. In the glass mirror, you will see the current condition of your vehicle. If it's young and beautiful, you will say, wow, how beautiful am I? And when it gets old and worn out, you will get upset and feel shame, or but you won't be able to take the sense of glory that you do if you see that you have a perfect, beautiful body. This is the difference between soul consciousness and body consciousness. A body conscious person looks at their self as a body, and they do whatever they can to adorn it, to make it look better, and somehow enhance their value that way. Whereas a soul-conscious person will look in the mirror of the heart and adorn the self with wisdom, with virtues, with attributes that apply to the soul and which are long-term. You can do whatever you want to your body, but it's not going to last very long. You know, people have a facelift. It looks nice for a while, and then, you know, pretty soon you need another one, another and another and another. And people use all sorts of cosmetic surgery to stave off the effects of aging, but eventually you would regret and say it'd be better if you just allowed yourself to age naturally. You confuse yourself with your vehicle.
And you're saying we're not the vehicle.
Yes, I am not my body. Within the feminist movement, the feminist women say, I am not my biology, because in the patriarchal system, people say, you are a woman, therefore you're weak, therefore you don't need money, therefore you don't need an education, therefore, all on the basis of the body. And that woman will say, I am not my biology, I am my mind. This is much closer to soul consciousness than the angle of view of the patriarchal society that says a woman is her biology. She is a machine for reproduction and keeping the house clean. You know, and the woman will say, well, I can do those things, no doubt, and you can't. But I can do a lot of other things too. You know, I'm not limited by my biology. So it's about transcending the material, visible, tangible instrument, and operating on the basis of knowing that there is material reality and there is non-material reality, and they work together. And in body consciousness, you deny the existence of the non-material. In soul consciousness, you work with both dimensions together at all times.
That was pretty powerful, your last response. In the context of being happy, It's a quest that's in the heart of almost every single soul on the planet. And yet, people find life to be hard. We find that there is difficulty staying alive. We find difficulty in the areas of finance, in the areas of health, and especially the realm of relationships.
Yeah, well, what people want is love, you see. If you have love, you will be satisfied, you'll be fulfilled.
That is also a commodity that's very expensive and very rare.
Well, it is, because one of the essential characteristics of a soul is love. But when the quantity of these fundamental qualities is practically nothing, then you have an empty person trying to get filled with love from another empty person. It will not work. The source of love is God, the ocean of love. This is what soul consciousness will help you with. It will enable you to draw love into yourself so that you can then enrich your relationships by bringing love into them. And of course, most people are totally empty. So if you have a little bit, it's going to look like a huge treasure store. But such a person, if they realize, okay, I have a lot of love, but they don't have as much love as God has, and they can quite easily get depleted because they maybe don't understand that what feels like a lot is not quite enough to go around as far as it is desired. So we have to try to increase our energies, the energies of purity, peace, power, love, bliss, these 5 fundamental elements of the soul. This is what the soul is made of. And when the soul is spiritually depleted, you're just so empty and so needy that you don't have the energy to connect with the source. So this is also something that we have to work with, getting the energy to connect, then connecting, and then filling. This is key.
I once heard it said that just as anger is a secondary emotion, happiness is also a result of what we do or what we achieve. And if one pursues happiness itself, you won't actually get it. Do you subscribe to the same understanding or not?
Yes, no, I definitely do. And one of my descriptions or definitions of happiness is a byproduct of pure karma. So when you do a good karma based on purity, peace, power, love, bliss, when you do something based on your love for God or your love for humanity, and you do anything like that, pure, the immediate return is the feeling of happiness. Anyone who benefits from you at any level will return that feeling of benefit with what we call in spiritual language blessings. And these blessings is like a wave of happiness. I experienced it one time. It was very interesting. I had to translate some material over the internet, and it was listened to by people all over the world, huge numbers of people. And it happened that they liked my translation, and I experienced this as just a wave of happiness coming my way. And I thought, whoa, this is so tangible. Now I really understand how, when you do something that satisfies people, a very big thing comes back in return, which is sustaining.
Pure karma. That's not a term that one hears outside this place. So tell us more about pure karma. We all know about bad karma. We know that the wheel has turned. We know that payback is a hound that'll bite you. But pure karma, not so much.
Yeah, that's true.
Give us some details. Expand on it for us.
You know, there is a word punya that I like very much and I use quite a lot. And it doesn't translate so easily into English because it's not part of the Western philosophy or culture. But in India, people are very much occupied by accumulating the energy of punya. And punya is a product of good karma. And what it does is causes all sorts of circumstances to be favorable towards you. This is punya. So people try to do karma on all sorts of levels to accumulate this energy which causes everything to go well, which is a kind of happiness. In terms of karma, what is the best thing that you can do? If somebody is ill, do something to relieve their illness. If somebody is lacking in education, do something to inform them and educate them. If somebody doesn't have any shelter, provide them with shelter. If somebody has no food, give them food. When you fulfill somebody's desperate needs, this is considered really pure karma. And the prevailing social attitudes will add to that and mix desires with needs. And then they will say, you have to fulfill my desire, and then that's pure karma, but it's not. You fulfill someone's selfish desire or negative desire, that becomes negative karma for you. And so you have to be very discerning and really do what is needed at the time of need, and that becomes really, really pure karma. So when you satisfy a person at the deepest level and you satisfy their valid, important needs, this is very pure karma and you will experience a lot of happiness.
The Supreme Soul has many titles, one of which is the Ocean of Happiness. How does that relate to us in our quest for happiness?
Sukh ka sagar in Hindi. Sukh is translated as happiness. Kushi is the feeling of happiness. Sukh is prosperity. And so God is not the ocean of happiness, but the ocean of what provides you with prosperity. So a person who is prospering, or we sometimes have used the word thriving. So God enables you to get out of survival and into thriving. This is what is meant by that title, Sukha Sagar, because of teaching you the laws of karma, number one, and because of making it possible for you to be in profit in terms of health, wealth, and relationships. This is Sukh, prosperity.
So on that prosperous note, we bid you farewell. Thank you. Thank you. So there you go, happiness, how to get it. Very interesting perspective from a yogi with 45 years experience. Sister Denise has explained how we become happy, not through the direct pursuit of happiness, but through pure karma, which I think was the deepest message for today. And I do hope that you have taken immense benefit from today's episode, and I wish you all the happiness in the world. Take care and goodbye.